the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Mr. DiGiacchino? Mrs. Hoppy? Here. Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Santoro? Here. Mrs. Tover? Here. Mrs. Brochu? Here. Ms. Broach? Here. Mrs. Lees? Here. Correspondence.
Yes, we received one letter, board resignation letter from Sarah Suey.
Okay, at this time I would like to thank Sarah, Suey, and Mindy Hoppy. This is Mindy's last meeting. Sarah's not here. For their service to the board and their commitment and energy in committees. You had a good time.
We had a good time.
So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
You've been here 4 years.
I know.
And Sarah Ford, she's going on to other things.
Bigger and better things.
Right, well, I don't know what could be better, but.
Oh, sorry. Say better.
But thank you very much.
Another thing.
Thank you.
Oh my God, it was my pleasure. It's pretty awesome. You know, I think, I don't know when I can speak, but I have a whole thing planned, so when you're ready, I'll talk.
I also, at this time, I want to mention that we are accepting still applications for the board seat that Sarah is vacating up until next Monday.
Thank you.
Report of the superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. I always feel as though once we finish the last turkey drumstick, the world starts spinning a little bit faster. Nothing quite says the holiday season like music concerts, and our holiday concerts are in full swing. BMS choral and instrumental concerts, as well as the high school choral concert, have all wrapped up, but we still have the high school's instrumental performance and Bedwell's concert to look forward to. I'm sure that many are aware that as we sit here tonight, BHS's Madrigals are performing at the White House. And if it weren't for tonight's board meeting, either Jen or I would have been there too. We saw some pictures, it does look great. Reflection always seems to be in order as one year changes to another. There's the, here's what I'm happy with, and the, here's what I'd love to work towards. At the first coffee with the superintendent a few weeks back, these guideposts drove our conversations about the district. While we brainstormed ideas for helping SHSD continue to grow and excel, the thoughts that I want to share tonight surround what parents appreciate about our district. The open and honest dialogue, the fact that graduates are well prepared for the challenges of college, and yes, the new drug policy. But most of all, I heard about our staff. SHSD teachers were described as amazing, passionate, engaged, and invested. So as 2018 closes, let's remind ourselves just how lucky we are. And now for our student report. Tonight I'm excited to announce that we have not one, Kendall Gilmore, you have to wait, I have a surprise. We have not one but two student representatives. I think we'd all agree that the high school report is the highlight of most of our meetings, but tonight we've added a middle school report to the mix. So Kendall, before we invite you to come to the podium, I'd like to welcome John Tolber to come up to the podium. John is here to give us an update on Burnsville Middle School. Thank you, John.
Hello, my name is John Tober. I am the secretary of the Burnsville Middle School Student Council. I'm here to talk about our upcoming and successful events. Our first event was the 7th and 8th grade Halloween dance. That was a very successful event. The attendance was significantly great. The reason for that being was because we charged $5 on permission slip, and then we gave them $1 when they entered the dance. Thanks to our parents, we had a variety of tasty treats provided to our students at the dance. At the end of the dance, 3 lucky students got to take home a $20 gift card out of the raffle. Another event was the 6th grade Fall Fest. The 6th graders got their event too this year with the Fall Fest. The event was very successful as there was many students that participated. We raised a good amount of money for the student council with the price still being reasonable. The students liked the DJ, Minute to Win It games, and the food. The parents were very successful hosting all of the games and were there for anything the students needed. Students enjoyed this event and would like to see something similar to it in the future of EMS. We have 2 upcoming events. One is the student-faculty basketball game, which will take place on January 24th. A portion of the money will be donated to Market Street Mission. We will provide you with more details as time passes. Another event is the convention in Trenton. The student council officers and 2 5th graders are planning to participate in the student council convention in Trenton. This is the first time that our student council at BMS has participated in a larger convention, and we are all very excited. This will take place on January 9th, and we will represent our school in this convention. The student council of BMS is very excited for all these upcoming events, and we will check in next month to update you with the ongoings in our student council. Thank you.
Thank you, John. You did a great job. It's hard to go first. Thank you. Kendall, you ready?
Yes. That's a hard one to follow. My name is Kendall Gilvar, and I'm the student representative for BHS. So basically what I do is I just give a monthly summary of student life at BHS. So this report, I kind of wanted to focus on student wellness. As much as the school and staff really try to promote student wellness with like different various programs, it's most effective when it derives from the students based on what I've seen. This month, various groups of students have tried to really focus on wellness. For example, the peer leaders have had a mindfulness and meditation training that's planned on the 19th. And basically what that is all the peer leaders are going to go to one seminar during the day, hopefully during their study hall. And they kind of take some stress and anxiety reducing strategies back to their freshmen so that we kind of start like instituting wellness and mindfulness freshman year, so it kind of goes up to the more stressful years like junior and senior year. Pet therapy is also going to be instituted on Monday the 15th, which is right after the college application deadlines come out. So it's going to be happy or sad for a couple of people, but either way the dogs will help. So studies have definitely shown that dogs and different animals that are brought in reduce student stress. And whenever the animals come in, everyone seems pretty happy, so that's really effective. If you guys have any ways or ideas how we can also keep the wellness initiative going at PHS, I'm sure I would love to bring that back to the student body. In other news, Madame Basile's class recreated French modern art. If you guys want to check it out, it's all over the walls right past the entrance, and it really brightens up the hallways. Another thing, the dodgeball tournament happened, and there was a lot of success with that in the student council. It raised a lot of funding, and it was great to involve the different staff members. My student council team did make it to the finals, but Dr. Nigel got me out. The yearbook is working on senior superlatives right now, which is pretty chaotic, but it's a fun time for seniors. The STEM Mentoring Club visited Bedwell to teach 4th graders about density last month, and the photos are pretty awesome. If you want to check out the Bernard's High School Twitter account, it's really cool that we're kind of bringing STEM into the younger generations. Like you mentioned, the holiday choir concert was last Thursday, and we definitely got everybody in the spirit. Madrigals visited the White House to sing for the White House holiday celebration, and I think it was really cool how that opportunity was able to give out to the high school students, because people are posting on Instagram and Snapchat and are kind of making EHS look pretty good. So I think that's nice. The instrumental concert is tomorrow. Hope everyone can attend. The Tricky Try was earlier this month, which raised a lot of money for Project Graduation. Project Graduation is super important for seniors because it helps give money towards events like the fashion show and Night of the Stars. For anyone who doesn't know, Night of the Stars is basically a time when seniors dress up as celebrities or historical figures in groups, and it's one of the most fun days to be a senior. Other than that, I hope everyone has a nice holiday break, and thank you.
second that. I hope everybody has a wonderful vacation and a time away. And Mindy, I would say to Sarah, but she's not here, I will not only miss your smile, but your enthusiasm, and I always respect the fact that you always put our students before anything else.
Thank you very much.
Can I say something about Mindy, or is that?
Sure.
Or later, we're gonna, I don't know if you're doing something later.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to Mindy.
It's fine.
I'm going to miss.
I'm at home, so I might as well get a
I'm
dinner.
going to miss Mindy tremendously. I think she's brought an awful lot to this board, a different perspective that is very enlightening, and she is 100% totally focused on our kids, and I, for one, will miss her a great deal. It's going to be a lost door for her. I wish her well with your retirement and the whole future. And your son's graduation next year.
Oh, God.
We're very excited about that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You do want to say something? You can. if you like.
Well, yeah, I took notes because I tend to get a little, I short circuit. First off, I want to thank P-PAC Gladstone for giving me the honor of representing two wonderful towns, and to have the privilege of sitting on the SHSD Board of Ed. Being an educator for very many years, like 30, God, it has, I looked at education from a different lens, and I learned a lot. But most importantly, I learned that we are very blessed here in this district. Our teachers and our staff are so devoted and so dedicated and are so filled with love and compassion, and they always strive for excellence. And not only do they throw academics at the kids, they educate the whole child. And I don't mean this wellness thing, even before that, you know, they look at a child socially, emotionally, academically, and they really focus on how to mold a whole child, you know, a caring person, one who will be functioning in our society, you know, and contributing to our society. I also wanted to thank my peers here on the board. I loved being on this board. I know that sometimes you saw I got a little crazed, but that happens, and you know, but the nice part was we agreed to disagree on things, but we talked about it, and it was a nice opportunity to discuss issues that affect our children, you know, and one of the important things that we can't forget as a board is that we can't bring our own personal agendas onto the board. We're here for the children, and always for the children first, you know, and that's pretty exciting. I was lucky enough to marry Michael Hoppy. Don't tell him that. Don't show him that. Because when we lived in Long Valley, all he ever wanted to do ever since we were married was bring our child to Burnsville school system. And I'm like, really, why? Come on. He just loves this district. So we sent Michael here, and we moved to Gladstone, and we put Michael in the system. And the teachers from kindergarten up, truly, God bless them for A, putting up with him, but B, he's now so involved in college and at TCNJ, and he was so prepared. Like, sometimes I look at him and I go, oh my God, who are you? Like, he's smart. You know, but he got that from he learned to love learning. And that, as an educator, as we know, you want to instill a love of learning, because that's our job. Because you never want to lose that enthusiasm in life. So I know I could go on forever. I apologize, but I just want to say thank you so much. It was an honor. It was a great experience. I loved working on curriculum and policy. I know everyone said policy was horrible. I loved it. And curriculum was really cool, and the teachers and the supervisors brought to the table such an enriched curriculum, and the time they took to write curriculum in the summer, and all this stuff that goes on behind the scenes that the public doesn't know about, it's just mind-blowing, and I'm just thankful. And I also want to thank the coaches who dedicate their time for these children, because in life happens on the field. You have to learn to socialize, to solve problems, to negotiate your way through an issue or something that you're having difficulty with. And you have to learn to communicate with your peers on teams. So those coaches really made an impact on my son, and the amount of kids that participate in the co-curricular activities, if I said extra, my husband would kill me. It's co-curricular activities. We have a very high percentage of kids that participate in co-curricular activities, and it enriches their lives to the point of, or just as much as the teachers and parents, and I don't know who said it, maybe it was Mrs. Clinton that says it takes a village, and we are a great village, and I was lucky enough to be a part of it, so thank you.
Okay. Public questions and comments. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have done so. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public questions and comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input. Do we have any public? Yes. Hello.
I believe this was an agenda item since you talked about it, but on behalf of myself as a P-PAC Gladstone resident, I just wanted to thank Mindy for her commitment to this board and always being an advocate for the students of this district. I just wanted to say thank you.
Any other comments or flowers?
My husband will be very upset with you. Because he doesn't give me these very often. Thank you so much. It's really sweet.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Can we have a move to motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Thank you. Now, we would like to, wait, any discussion? You're right, discussion on, any discussion on the minutes? And roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Bob, would you like to give a report on finance?
Sure. The Finance Committee met on December the 4th, which was last Tuesday. Our meeting went about 2 hours. I'll go through them in order and save the longest for last. We talked about our QSAC score, so the Finance Committee got 100% on QSAC. That's our own internal score. You'll hear that from other committee members tonight. You'll notice on the agenda tonight, we're approving the sale of two buses, and we got a great deal. I'm shocked that our buses must have been in better shape than we might imagine, but we got $34,000 for the sale of buses 5 and 6?
3 and 5.
Oh, 3 and 5, I'm sorry. It's on the agenda, so that money comes back in, and that helps fund some of the new buses we purchased. We talked about the budget timeline because we're starting in the budget season between now and April, so we've set some times, and you've all got a copy of that in your packet. So we'll do a budget hearing with the public at the end of March. We will do the final approval at the end of April, and then we'll be doing a lot of work between now and March on various budget items. The audit report we thought would be ready for tonight, but the audit report's been pushed back to February, right?
Either late January or...
So it's pretty much done. It's just that there's a couple things that the state is requiring on pensions and on calculations. So the auditor will be here at our February meeting to present the audit to us, and we'll have an opportunity to ask him any questions. Last thing we talked about was the ice hockey program at BHS. And we had a presentation by the Somerset Hills Ice Hockey Association, which is the parent organization which has always funded ice hockey from when the inception was back when my son started, if I remember. So that's 20 years ago probably. So we're in a co-op, what they call a co-op program with 2 other schools. We share the ice hockey program with Somerville and Middlesex, all right? And the contract we signed a 2-year contract that will expire at the end of March. So the concern the board has is, do we have enough players? What's the projection? Because we don't want to sign a contract if there's not enough players, and are the other schools paying their fair share? So right now there's 26 players, and they do a JV program and a varsity program. They also do a middle school program, and they do a summer program, but the middle school program and the summer program is not funded anywhere by any of the 3 schools. So right now, the Board of Education for this year, we're the host school because we have the most players. So we have 11, Somerville has 9, Middlesex has 6. So we pay about $1,000 a person, which covers the coach, which is $7,200, and Somerville pays for the assistant coach cost, which is $6,600. And this year, since Middlesex has more players, they only had 1 or 2 players last year, they're going to pay for the transportation. So they have 4 or 5 buses that will take the players to the ice rink. So our concern is, will the 2 other schools be willing to continue to fund, and do we have enough players to continue the program? So they gave us spreadsheets showing the player projection. There's no guarantee of the player projections. So the Finance Committee is going to work with the parent organization to get more data. We asked them to go back to 2 other schools to make sure if they're going to commit for the next 2 years, if we sign another contract, and see what the numbers are. So this board, we can decide we don't want to participate or we want to participate. So it's a funding thing. So we'll be able to share with you in more detail what the projections are for the coming year, because once they get toward February time, they'll know which players are going to come back, where they are. So that's where that is. So that will be continuing conversation and part of the budget. So that's the end of my report. I'd like to move items 1 through 8, and there's 2 of the items are on the addendum, which is number 3 and 4. Do I have a second? Any questions?
The contract that you're signing, is that with the schools or with the parent organization?
It's between the schools. It's the NJSIAA has a contract template that you use, and you have to follow their rules. And right now, a co-op program can only be between group 1 and 2 schools, but they just voted they had a meeting recently that they were going to expand it to groups 3 and 4. So, because some of the football teams in the state are wanting to join because of player participation is dropping. So some of the co-ops, I think we're going to see more of those because, as populations shift and interest in sports shift, it may make sense, okay? So the parents, they raise over $40,000 to $50,000 because the ice time, and we don't pay the ice time runs $30,000 to $40,000. So it's a huge commitment by the parents to get this, and they charge the players $850 to be on the team. So $850 times all the 26 kids, plus all the fundraising. So they give us spreadsheets of their income and the budget. So it's a huge effort by these parents to do this. It's a lot of money that they're raising. So the school is not, we're not paying that off. So we have the ski team, they do the same thing. So, they raise money, the board doesn't pay the whole cost of the program, so.
Can I ask a question? Do we, historically, have we always paid $1,000 per kid, or does that fluctuate based upon the number of kids we have on the team?
In the past, we would pay, before, when it was a Berners High team, we would pay whatever it cost, not the ice time. We'd never pay the ice time. We pay for you have to have, if you look at normal sports, you're paying for the referees, transportation, equipment. Sometimes you need people to help at the event. So if you look at what Mike Hoppy's, he does a spreadsheet that we all have, and you can look at those things, and it varies by sport. So in the previous years, we paid up to $20,000, but we had a lot more players, But once the players started dropping, we couldn't do this on our own, so that's why we went out to Somerville. So we've been with Somerville since 2012, and only with Middlesex these last year and this year.
Okay.
So that's where it is now. So I think if you look at how much we spend per student on athletics, the average across the board, if you do it, it's a little over $800.
Okay.
So.
What's the low and the high on that?
The low is like girls tennis, or there's some sports that are around $500. I think football is high. Football is like $1,800. I don't want, that's what it costs. It's a huge program, and girls basketball is high. That's over $1,000 a girl, but it depends because you have certain fixed costs like the coaches. So if they get 10 more girls on the basketball thing, the cost goes down per player. So we're sort of between that 500 and let's say $1,800 range, Tim, you know, and so it's, you know, there's no, every sport's going to have different things, and sometimes the sports has to buy brand new uniforms or new equipment or get something fixed or things like that. We do collect revenue for wrestling, basketball, and football. I think I have to get basketball. There's 4 sports we actually charge people to come to the game, so there is some offset there. The student activity fees help, you know, but, you know, we're spending, you know, about $800,000 a year, you know, so it's expensive.
And then in last meeting, we talked about performing an analysis of the funding, both direct and indirect, in the athletic programs. Where do we stand on that analysis?
I'm not sure. I haven't done anything on that.
I believe that's going to be on the agenda for the Finance Committee for January.
Okay, yeah, okay. Any more questions?
And my last question. So, ice hockey's open up to any student?
It's even girls.
Okay. But it's
So
just,
they have a girl, they have a girl player, you know, this year.
but it's just very expensive for a student to play it. So even though we'll pay $1,000, they have to pay $800 extra, so. Okay. And the participation fee for the school, right?
Well, no, they pay the $850 per student, and the parents have to raise a lot of money, like fundraising, and but then the school, then they get funding from the school. But like a lot of sports, you have to start playing hockey when you're 5 or 6 years old, you know, so you start very young, and then you go into it. There's a lot of sports like that, you just can't, you know, if somebody in high school walked on the hockey team right now, they never skated, it would be a real challenge, but, you know, or like if you're a swimmer, you never swam, it would be a real thing. So but you need about 20 players to play a game. So when you start dropping below that 20 varsity players, then you can't really have a team that's viable. Okay.
I'm just going to say the other sport that's similar is the ski team, because the parents pay a lot of money per student and have to buy the passes for the season and do fundraising and everything too. And the board gives $10,000 to the ski team for busing, but, you know, the parents raise it. It's similar. It's not as expensive because we don't, buying a lift ticket is cheaper than paying for ice time. But it's another sport like that. Any further questions? Roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hockey?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay. Janice, curriculum?
Okay, so that's on. The committee, the curriculum committee met on December the 4th, and we were in committee for, over 2 hours that day. It was long. We didn't get to all the items, but I'll report on the items we did get to. We reviewed the DPR, which is the District Performance Review section of CUSAC. And I do just want to remind people, because I think it's easy to forget what CUSAC is. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a review. CUSAC is the Department of Education's monitoring and self-evaluation system for public school districts. The system shifts the monitoring and evaluation focus from compliance to assistance, capacity building, and improvement. This system focuses on monitoring and evaluating school districts in 5 key components that, based on research, have been identified to be key factors in effective school districts. Those components are instruction and program, fiscal, governance, operations, and personnel. The curriculum committee will continue to review the indicators for the instruction and program portion of CUSAC. After that, Grant Comer propose that we replace our outdated AP Statistics and AP Biology textbooks with updated versions. So what's going to be determined will be the ratio of hard copy books to electronic versions. Students will be surveyed to determine their preference of hard copy books versus electronic versions and why. The cost will depend on which version is chosen. Then Colleen Butler reviewed the Bernards High School profile with our committee. She explained that the main purpose of the profile is to give colleges a quick and accessible view of the context of a student's transcript. The profile gives colleges lots of information that shows where a student fits in a concise, encapsulated form. Among other things, it also shows the colleges and universities in which our students enroll. Did we all receive a copy of that profile? Okay, then Mike Catelli reviewed the use of the AP data from the 2017-18 school year. We will look at the data longitudinally and analyze how to improve instruction. It will enable us to determine the relationship between student test scores and grades. Okay, after that, as it came back to the curriculum committee, there were additional questions about possible AP course offerings. We decided that due to the need for additional information, that presently we will continue with AP World History and make the changes to the curriculum as directed by the College Board. The name change to the course is AP World History Modern. And it will, instead of teaching a huge time frame, it will cut that time frame in half and then possibly go into more detail about what they're teaching. After that, field trips were approved, and right now I would like to move items 1 through 6 on the agenda and 7 through 10 on the addendum. Any questions?
So you're doing a survey on the kids who, would they prefer a hard copy or so my concern is that there might be students that don't have access to computers, like will we be able to
Yeah, we discussed, we did discuss that.
Yes.
Absolutely, that's
What
why.
if someone's computer died and they're freaking out at home?
Right, we brought those things up in committee, and, we said, well, why not go to all electronics? And then, the books are heavy, they're thick, electronics will be easier to carry, et cetera, et cetera. I brought up the fact that if you read electronically all the time, it does have an effect on your eyes, which may not be positive. But we did discuss all of that information, and that's why we did want to reach out to the kids to see what their preferences were. And, things could happen. You could lose power, and then nobody has access to devices.
Will the teachers get to have any input? Yes, teachers will have to.
We just wanted to get a feel for what's the right combination. We would never go all the way to online, but what's the right combination? If kids say they would never use a book, and there's always books in the library, so we're trying to just see what's the most cost effective. Why buy all these expensive books if they're not going to use them?
If a student didn't have a computer at home, we would provide the book.
Well, then I have another question. Might as well be out of the bag, right? Do we have little computers for those who don't, like a
We haven't
Chromebook or
historically given
so we can
laptops to certain students. We also are in the process of replacing the laptops that our teachers have, which means that we will have a stockpile of machines looking for homes.
because
students can-
students definitely.
Any more questions?
I just brought that up so everybody knows what's going on. So,
Always welcome your questions.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino? Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanforo?
Yes.
Mrs. Stover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Okay. Facilities, right?
Facilities met last Wednesday afternoon, met for about a couple of hours. We discussed capital projects. Now you've heard from the building principals about what their priorities are for buildings as of yet. That will be probably hopefully by next meeting. Although the media center at the middle school is a high priority, the generators there are an even higher priority. We budgeted $150,000 towards them. Talk about 2 generators at the middle school, given that it is an area that we use in emergency situations as well for the borough. We need the architects to give us numbers for the 2 generators. Once we know that exact number, we'll review those projects once again. We discussed the handicap ramp for the home bleachers at Olcott Field, which is going to be done this year. We discussed the Burnsville Middle School Media Center project. The entire committee seemed to feel that was felt that that was one of our higher priorities, just to make sure we don't lose sight of that. We do want to make sure we get that done sooner rather than later. We have $150,000 earmarked for security cameras and updates for all 3 schools. Roof repairs at the high school is in our operating budget. And looking at new truck and asbestos remediation at Olcott. Second one was our board agendas. We are talking about, and we could discuss this once we move the approval of the report. Moving to paperless board agendas. The consensus was positive in moving to sending us a packet online and then printing a final agenda for the Wednesday board meeting. Talking about doing that in July, and then we would like to discuss going paperless altogether. So the hope is that once we get the board packet, we can print what we would like ourselves. If we need something printed, we can reach out to Heather, and we can have that done as individuals need this to be done. So hopefully we can talk about that tonight. And again, it's a very positive consensus by the entire F&O committee. Number 3, the student enrollment out of district. I've been getting some reports, I'll speak for myself, that we are getting several students who may not live inside the district, being brought here outside. The majority of the committee felt there were no major problems that our current system did not address, so we'll just continue to address situations that are directly reported to the Office of the Superintendent and follow up as we have been doing. Number 4, we spoke about the diving situation. We have one student or 2 students? One student. Okay, one student who is interested in diving in 2 specific meets representing to represent Bernard's High School. We had discussed that, and the consensus there was that if there were no specific insurance or liability claims, or concerns, I should say, that we would do that, given the fact that it's on the agenda tonight. I'm assuming I'm not hear back from Heather, but that looks to be okay, so we're going to be approving that this evening, or we're going to be voting on that this evening. Number 5, the Burnsville Center continues to be ongoing. We received a letter from the Burnsville Center attorney basically saying that, again, we cannot use their property to build a walkway and access the center by using the existing crosswalk signs that are in place. been there for quite a while, adding a little commentary there, but Heather has reached out to our land use attorney. The planning board has a meeting scheduled tomorrow evening. We are on the agenda, or Burnsville Center is on the agenda, and our land use attorney is going, we will meet with the land use attorney before the meeting, and then we will be in attendance. At least 3 board members will be in attendance there in addition to the attorney. So we are staying on top of that. Again, we're in a situation where we've approved, we've gotten the numbers back on building this access and handicapped areas as well. And currently we lack permission from the center to use their property to build this. So again, it's moving more slowly than people had hoped, but it is moving nonetheless. That's the positive part to that portion of the report. CUSAC has inspected our facilities. CUSAC has come up several times this evening, and will continue in the future meetings. We've self-scored ourselves under the operations portion and grade ourselves at 94%. And the area we were unable to give ourselves points was in the area of transportation. You either get all the points or none of the points, but we've addressed those concerns, so there really isn't any concerns regarding facilities with CUSAC. With that, I would like to make a motion that we approve action items numbers 1 through 5. Is there anything on the agenda? No. Action items 1 through 5.
Second.
Any questions?
Greg, I have a question. Sorry. So with regards to the VMS Media Center, I know you said sooner rather than later. Do you have an estimate of time frame? Or are you thinking the next school year, or?
We didn't talk any specifics. We did discuss, I'm not sure where it's at since our meeting, but we did discuss doing things that we can do ahead of time and things that we can do within our operating budget that might help. The generators there are primary right now, but we didn't discuss dates, but it was, I will tell you, it was important to every person on the committee, so, is that right, Heather? We did not discuss any specific dates.
We're still going through the priorities of what all of the items are and what the amount of money is that we will have, and then we'll have to take it from there. So this is kind of just the first look at all of the big projects that are in our long-range facility plan.
As Greg alluded, though, we did look at, is there a way for us to do this in stages where we can maybe move something forward without waiting to do everything at once?
Well begun is half done kind of thing, so it's, we're hoping for that.
And then I'm sorry, I have one more question. So just for clarification, Greg, in our notes, it says majority of F&O believe that there are no problems with students enrolled in the school who live outside the SHSD sending district. So does that mean that you don't believe there's any students outside the district who are coming, or does it mean that we don't have a problem with the students outside the district coming?
No, I don't think anybody thought that if students were attending our school that were not legally entitled to our services, that was not a problem. And certainly I don't want to speak for the other board members that were in attendance, but the consensus seemed to be that the process that is in place now in terms of bringing things to my attention was one that we felt was working, and there didn't seem to be a sense that this was really a problem, so to speak. Was that fair, Heather?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you were there as well, Greg.
No, that's fair. And I will bring up personally now, we're in the discussion phase of this, that I do believe that I, and I don't think anybody else up on this board knows any specific numbers. I do know what I have heard. I do know that typically people are not comfortable reporting things, and that was my concern. I was hoping we could be a little more proactive, but my concerns were heard, and I think we are going to, we're going to be if things are reported to us, but I just felt like people are more reluctant to report things in fear of some kind of retaliation or having their name put out there. But
And I kind of, anybody can send me anything, even anonymously. I mean, any report we take seriously.
And I just want to add, we did discuss what we currently do proactively through the registration process, which takes place at all 3 schools. So we talked about the process that we have in place, and that, so really that is the steps that we do proactively. And then if there's a known issue, if it's brought to Gretchen's attention, she will follow through on that.
So the committee's comfortable that their process is robust? Or once an issue is identified, that's the outcome was?
Yeah, the current, we felt, most of us, I feel myself personally, that the process that we're using, Gretchen spoke to it always, you always look at your processes and you can change them and adapt, and I think we've talked about how...
We've talked about alternatives that would certainly involve a cost and a manpower effort that could have a finer sieve, and whether that decision is made going forward, that is something we can continue to talk about. I think the consensus seemed to be in that meeting that there did not seem to be a feeling that this was a huge problem that was bubbling under the surface, so to speak.
Right, that would require more resources at this point.
Thank you.
there are companies, one in particular, that does this more proactively, but it would involve additional resources and additional attention. But again, feeling the majority was that we just move forward with what we're doing pretty much.
Thank you.
Hi, Monica.
I'm sorry.
Greg, number 5, when you mentioned that the diver, is that like a diver from the swim team? And they just want to extend their season to now include the diving
They don't
component?
have a diving team.
There's no diving team.
But she is on the swing
She's on the
team.
swim team.
Okay, so this is, okay. So, for example, if there was another sport that we don't have, and the student wanted to represent Bernards, they can do that, and this is how it's done?
With board approval.
With board approval, that's something in our regulation and policies.
Yeah, given the circumstances, make it easy enough for us to approve that. In this particular case, it was one diver, and it was 2 very specific needs.
And it's no additional cost to the district because the parents are paying the registration fee for the needs.
And the swim coach is supervising.
Right, so.
Without any additional compensation.
Okay. So the swim coach is going to be there representing, okay. Okay.
Just to clarify to the public, for the walkway, just explain that, that's our property. So, because your reporting is excellent, don't get me wrong, but I think when you said that they're not letting us put the machinery on, it wasn't clear that we own this piece of property.
The
So
property would-
maybe you want to just explain it, just to
Okay, I appreciate that opportunity. Yeah, I just, any plugs we can get for additional support,
Yeah.
I certainly would appreciate. Currently, the charge was given to us a year ago by Mrs. Hunter before she had left. With the Burnsville Center application being heard and approaching final approval by the planning board, Mr. Baker and myself attended the 2 last meetings, the second to last meeting and the final meeting where they were given the approvals. We discussed the access there. The access that we're talking about is an 8-foot strip of land that we own at the base of the tall retaining wall, back parking lot by the cafeteria. The idea was to come down from the school down around the back of the softball field, actually right field, softball field, come down and around where the smaller retaining wall is there, cut the trees down, concrete that, and then enter into that 8-foot strip of land that runs from the, behind the shopping center up to where the property jets out before you get to the front section of the Burnsville Center. Our plan was to build a concrete walkway, fencing, to direct the students. They come in, we're going to put a set of steps coming down. This is not excluding the handicap areas in the back that we are in need of for the fields, but specifically for the access part of it. Set of steps coming down because for students, and we watched them, and I always go to Jamie when Jamie's eyes were bulging out of her head when she saw students jumping over fences, and it's crazy. Students will take the most direct path, so we're going to...
Like water.
The plan was to come down, put a set of steps coming down from the highest part of that ramp, and then it would be handicap accessible to come around the bottom of the, again, towards the right field of the softball area, and then around for people who want to walk, and then build an 8-foot concrete sidewalk leading up to the opening where the alley, I call an alleyway, between Chipotle and the other part of the center where Gary's is, and I forget what stores are there, but we can't do the concrete walkway unless we have access to the Burnsville Center. Burnsville Center has been in the loop. I personally met with one of the owners of the center a year ago. He had some concerns, but we moved forward. We didn't hear back. We had the attorneys. When we approved the plans, we sent the information. We tried to contact them. We never heard back from Burnsville Center. Our assumption was that all systems were go and everything was okay. The planning board did approve a relief of a couple of spaces for the Burnsville Center to allow a line of vision from the crosswalk area up towards where the cars were coming from the back of the shopping center, cars and trucks and so forth. Our belief, I think, as a F&O committee is that that is a safe crossing area. We talked about putting a stop sign there. We talked about, we have cameras there. We have cameras that are proposed there, and the Burnsville Center certainly has cameras there as well. So we've done everything we can do, and the Burnsville Center is now saying that they don't believe that's a safe crossing, and they are not allowing us to do that. So that's pretty much it.
And they don't want the machines to be that are needed to create this whole walkway to sit on their property.
Well, they wouldn't sit on the
Correct.
property. They'd be there for the
Right.
construction, and then
Right.
they would be off. So.
I don't know that we've ever gotten that far in the conversation.
Yeah. Now we.
So, Greg, just so I'm clear, presently at issue is the center is denying us the right to put temporary equipment to construct a facility that's on the property that we own. Is that correct?
No, they're denying us permission to put machines on the property they own. Not that we
They should
own.
build.
Right, but I'm saying,
Right,
but
build
what we
on
are
property.
asking is for temporary access for machinery to construct a walkway on property that we own.
Correct, yes. In effect.
And that the town center is denying us that.
Correct.
Okay, and that we are proposing a walkway that utilizes an existing walkway that has zebra striping and student crosswalk signs.
They took the
And
signs down.
I think.
I don't know, last
I do believe they're back up.
Okay,
but
they were down.
They've been up for a year. If they're down, then they just came down. But I think they were down, they were put back up, but I'm not.
So there's an established walkway
Correct.
that previously had been used as a student walkway, delineated as such both on the roadway and in signage.
It's a student crosswalk.
And we want to facilitate access for our students on property that we own, and we're being denied access to construct on said property by the center. Okay, that's a fair description?
Fair description.
Okay, because I just want to note, like, how great it is that Chipotle, like, our new tenant down there is willing to donate 33% of sales, for the boys' basketball. So clearly, the tenants of said property recognize the value of the school and the students in contribution to the economic, development of the center. And I would just, again, appeal to the owners of the Burnsville Center to be fair-minded, community members and provide us access for temporary equipment to build on our property on a walkway that we've previously used for students. I continue to be dumbfounded as to why they resist providing us access to our own property. I don't know. I know you've done a great job, and I'm dumbfounded. I'm certain it's
Again, just
not.
to be specific, they're denying us access to their property, to get onto our property.
They're denying us access to use construction equipment temporarily
On their property.
on their property.
To access and build.
To access and build on our property.
When
Okay.
it would just benefit them because all our kids and all our parents and everybody goes downtown, when Jones
And I think the key fact too is from a safety standpoint, we've had lots of conversations around the traffic that students would find themselves in crossing that way versus how they're crossing now.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the vehicular flow is identical. It's 200 feet down from the established current walkway for students. There is no change in vehicular patterns. In fact, it's incremental traffic that comes in at the point at which they're proposing the walkway. So I would be happy to talk to any traffic engineer and understand the logic of why it is that they're pushing it down that far. But in any event, I think it's a shame that we don't have a neighbor who's willing to play nice with our school and our students.
Kids spend money there, and as far as anything I've heard, they've been very respectful, and high school kids come down, they have a 40-minute lunch. The access that we provided meets the needs and concerns of Dr. Nigel. He said that shared with us one of the ideal situations would be direct access from the building to there. Without getting into the whole thing years ago, but what we could have done is have the students access the area going across our parking lot and then using the Whitewood property, TD Bank. That is not feasible. And again, this proposal is totally using our property. Obviously, the students will enter on Burnsville Center property, but they're going to enter somewhere else on Burnsville Center property, and I and many on our committee believe it's safer to do it the way we're proposing.
Have we ever had any, injuries or complaints or anything that's happened on?
Not in my memory.
So there's no, nothing that says, this has been a problem and this is why we're not allowing it.
That's frustrating.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees? Yes. Okay, Janice, policy?
Oops. Oh, I don't know if that's some kind of omen. Okay, policy committee met on December 5th, and we have been informed about CUSAC. I'm not going into that. Okay, on the homework regulation, our discussion centered around assigning purposeful, meaningful homework to be completed in a reasonable time frame at the high school. Then we talked about Strauss Esme policy regulation audit, with who they updated mandated policies, and we will have a second reading tonight. Let's see, we propose a change in the language of the activity fee policy 2436 to align with our practice, and there will be a first reading on that tonight. As we do every year, we will look at the school calendar and coordinate that with Bedminster. Then next, let's see, we were surprised to hear that this board's budget depends so much on fundraising. We will recommend going forward with their current fundraising, then look at fundraising in the future. So ongoing and future issues are, again, Strauss Esme, we are left with policies that are not mandated, but policies we may want to incorporate and implement. A list from Gretchen will be forthcoming. We may want to look at the language in our appeal process in the random student drug testing problem, drug testing. Then Booster Club, we've begun looking at policies governing fundraising in general, and we are still researching the idea of 8th grade overnight field trips. And I would like to move items 1 and 2 on the agenda. Are there any questions?
Give me a second. I'll second. Oh, you do something else.
Second. I'll second.
I have a quick question. Does Strauss Esme have any policies regarding fundraising?
Oh, yes. Ones that we have already in place, yes.
Anything that addresses what we're...
I don't know that it has the specifics that we're looking at in terms of those guidelines. They generally would not be in the policy necessarily, but in the regulation. But we've just begun that process. I think the thought was that after the discussion last month, we should basically say, all right, let's go with what we have typically gone with while we take the time to dig into that a little bit more.
Any other questions?
Are we agreeing on those 3 policies now? Or is this just
Yes.
The only policies you're voting on are the ones that are in the second reading, which were the ones that came out of the Strauss Esme audit.
No more questions? Okay.
Yes. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy? Yes. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanford?
Yes.
Mrs. Stover?
Yes.
Ms. Brochu?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lacy? Yes. Okay, personnel. Personnel met on December 4th for about an hour and a half. We went over CUSAC requirements for personnel and gave us a sub-score of 95. We discussed the need for the review of substitute rates. It's very difficult to get substitutes, particularly at this time of the year. So we were questioning whether our substitute rates were not in line with competing school districts. And I believe that we found that they are in line.
I have checked with the superintendents in Somerset County, and they are indeed aligned with those.
So I will say that I'm happy that on the agenda tonight, we are voting on 3 new substitutes, which hopefully will alleviate the situation somewhat. We discussed personnel needs going forward, and of course, those conversations will continue as we head into the budgeting season. With that, I would like to move items 1 through 12, and item number 3 is amended on the agenda.
Question? There was extensive discussion last year regarding substitute fees, and although I was in favor of it, I agreed with it in terms of we had agreed to do a a setup where if you substituted 5 times, you would get an extra day.
At Bedlam.
Yeah, are we happy with that? 'Cause I just felt like, let's keep everything simple and maybe make it just, if we need to subs at Bedwell, we just.
We changed the way that is accounted for, so for Heather's office, it was complicated to keep track of the accrual of the 5 days, especially. Right. So if you substitute at Bedwell now, you are paid for the equivalent of that 6th day across the 5 days that you're working. So there is definitely a pay differential between those buildings, or among, I should say. So
you have to
Bedwell.
work, you don't get anything
Teachers are
unless you
still,
work the 6th.
that was how it was originally. Right now, you are getting that as, so if you work day 1, you are now getting the equivalent of the day 1 pay plus the
So
1/6.
whatever,
Yes.
yeah, okay. All right, so that's new.
We voted on that earlier in the
We
year.
did, okay.
Yeah. It was too hard for, not that it was just too much
Yeah,
to keep track of.
I thought it was
the
good for you.
accounting.
Thank you. I said no.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees? Yes. Community Relations, Kathy?
The Community Relations Committee met on December 6th for about an hour and a half, and we had all our board member and administrative representatives present. We started off with a few updates from Dr. Dempsey, the first being around a potential partnership at the high school with Raritan Valley Community College. They're exploring possibly teaching an anatomy course that would be in partnership with RVCC. We received an update that the Community Friday folder, which had been halted for a while, will actually continue going forward, but in a different format. And lastly, Dr. Dempsey updated us on her coffee with the superintendent, and she updated us at the beginning of this meeting here, so I won't go into all of that. We then moved into looking at our evaluation criteria / checklist, which will be used when new partnership ideas come to the Community Relations Committee, and we actually are pleased to say that we now have an approved criteria or checklist that we'll use. We also had some discussion regarding the SLE programs that we discussed last time. The SLE are the student-led experiences for the high school. And where we landed was that we were actually going to identify a team that would go visit Northern Valley, hopefully for a visit. And through the superintendent's office, I think you're going to explore getting that meeting set up after the beginning of the year. And lastly, we discussed the community service program. Heather had attended a course down at the convention in Atlantic City and came back with some great ideas around what other districts are doing for community service programs, and it all sounds great and exciting, but I think we felt because we're looking into this SLE program, we can still have the dialogue around community service, but we're not ready to move anything forward at this time, so that will be in the future. So that's just, those are the updates from our committee. We don't have any actions to move forward. Any questions?
Oh, so what, I don't understand what you mean by the anatomy. You want somebody from Raritan Valley to come here? This is added into our curriculum?
Jen can maybe,
Please,
what are you talking about?
and we'll talk about more at curriculum.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's one of the
Because I didn't
things
know
that
you-
was on the list for curriculum that we had to wait because we
Oh,
didn't.
okay, good, good.
Yeah.
'Cause we didn't talk about the curriculum, like,
Right.
is curriculum we talking about?
No, so just
Yeah.
briefly, what it is, there's a companion course with Raritan Valley, so one of our teachers can be certified as also a Raritan Valley Community College teacher, and then the students that take the course can then get Raritan Valley credit for, and we're looking at anatomy.
And they would get college credit
They
for
would get
that.
Raritan Valley credit for it, yes. In addition to their credit here, taking it here in high school.
And the teacher is actually the one who brought it.
Teacher was the one, we had learned about this last year, but we're concerned about, could we find people that would be interested in this? And the teacher came forward and said, I would be interested, and I said, wonderful. So we've been going through the process.
No, something's in fact, something's coming. I have to figure it out. It's something that, it's reminding me of something, and I see something. Yes, there's something.
It's coming.
I will
discuss it at
Yeah, and I'll find out.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, there's something that concerns me, and I'm not sure what it is, but I see something in my head that relates to it, but okay. I'll wait. Something.
So do we have any public questions or comments on any items at all?
Really, my only reason, Blue Palm, my Gladstone, my only reason for coming tonight was to say goodbye to Mindy. But sitting here, it does bring up some questions and comments. And I just want to thank Greg for diligently pursuing that safe passage to the shopping center. Because I know that's been an issue with the district since they built the TV building. And then that crosswalk that's there, before the cafeteria was built, there used to be tennis courts there, and there was a nice stairwell that went right to that crosswalk that led right to that alleyway. So that's the reason why the crosswalk is there. Because Bob, you would remember that.
I use it many times.
And everybody used to use that to cut through to get to the shopping center. So
And Heather used it too, right, Heather?
Yes, I did.
But she was-
Everybody.
Yes.
No, both Heathers used it.
So there's a long history of using that alleyway as a passage from the high school property to the shopping center. So I just wanted to thank Greg for diligently pursuing that.
To Woolworths.
To Woolworths.
I remember that too. Where Gary's is was a Woolworths. So who in the audience remembers Woolworths? Come on. Nobody.
There's somebody.
So that was just a comment. The second question I have is, you were talking about the registration and out-of-district students that may be here. And I know the district looked at that, a while ago and tightened up the registration. But also you were doing a re-registration of all the schools. Has that all been done?
Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody have a good holiday season.
Thank you.
I'm just, Lou started it, so that's all. Sam Habibi, 8 Mosley Road, Gladstone. I just want to know, how many offenders are there in regards to this coming in from, like, different districts? Does anyone know numbers, like in the
Say
last?
offenders?
Well, I mean, not offenders, but like, how many people are coming to this district who don't live in Peapack, Gladstone, Fort Hills, Bernardsville, Bedminster?
I can tell you over the last year from the records that are in my office, it's a limited number. Rather than give you a definitive, I would say it's a handful.
Okay, and this is like in 1 year or in several years?
I believe it is in 2 years, but I would have to check to be sure what's in it. It's a hard copy binder.
Okay, all right, so that's what we have.
That's the general.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, once the floodgates open, I just before, since the end of the year is coming, Sam Frenda from Bernardsville. Last year, at the end of the year, there were a few of us that put together a letter that we submitted to the board regarding our non-English speaking student population. Sama and Liz Robles and Mary Ann Ravello and Catalina Vargas and Anne Marie Robles were also included on there. And it came to me that no formal discussion has been had since then regarding some of the asks that we put in there. And I recently had a conversation with some current board members down at Bedwell, where there's really the only tools to kind of get a reasonable idea about population where English isn't spoken at home because of the emergency phone chain they do there, and families that self-identify as needing translation services for that purpose. And we currently have two representatives down there that are working in conjunction with the bilingual HSA, in addition to the liaisons that we have at the schools. But there are only 2 volunteer translators down there at what is now 77 families that are in need of those services. And that's just at Bedwell identification. So as we're going into the new year, just something to maybe think about again, with this growing population and hearing from different homeroom parents about the need for using kind of basic high school skills to try and assist parents in their homerooms who are not getting adequate information and services. It's something that seems to be not just the needs that we identified, but a continually growing need. And being that one of the people who does translation down at Bedwell, should we have a snowstorm, she is going to be in Columbia for a month, so that leaves one volunteer down at Bedwell to call 77 families in the event of a school closure. I just, at this point, at the very least, I know we had an ask of upgrade of some kind to the phone system to have a Spanish option with a mailbox where even if it's a current district translator, return phone calls. Additionally, a paid translator position at this point would be extraordinarily helpful and just intuitive in terms of better serving our community. So.
And Sam, not to minimize what you shared, but I think one of the challenges at Bedwell right now is just the number of translators the district has as approved translators. They are limited. I can tell you that I just reached out to somebody that I know in town and said, ask your cousin, ask your brother, because if you know of local families who are bilingual and they are willing to come and translate at meetings.
Is that a volunteer?
No, that's a board approved. They are paid an hourly rate, and we are in need of people to fill that role.
Is there a way to more publicly advertise for that?
I believe it's on Applitrack now, but if it's not, I can certainly check.
Because I mean, there's a huge need. So
Absolutely.
If it's a paid position, it's something that I think would be.
And it's not, just so we're clear, that is an hourly rate, so it's not right now. And that's why I'm saying I don't mean to minimize what you're sharing, but I do think we do have that need, and we have a limited number of people who are right now on our, yes.
So, so if we had a weather event, could we hire someone to make those calls?
We could. I think the timing will be the challenge there.
Right, because you basically need someone on call.
Typically, these people are people that we use if we know we have, for instance, IRS meetings, and we know we need translation services. We go to our staff usually first, but that depends upon, their teaching load, lots of things.
Weather emergencies, the Honeywell system set up in Spanish.
The alert system
Yeah, like
is
press
They're delayed opening.
I do not know if it, do you know if it has any?
But they're required.
You're required to contact a parent. Okay, so you have to speak, because I call from my class and you have to speak.
Only in the case of an early dismissal.
Right.
So if the school is going to be closed or there's going to be a delayed opening, it's the robocall.
Right.
If
It can't be done in
it's
Spanish?
going to be done, if it's an early dismissal, the robocall still goes out, but Amy Fallon feels that these students are so young, she doesn't want anyone getting off a bus and not have anyone there waiting for them because someone missed a robocall.
Right,
So
but
that's
that's
the
a
issue.
good point. For the times that we could use the robocall, we should check to see whether that is something that.
believe it.
Right, I think it is.
And then the parents would.
And it doesn't unfortunately
Set
help
that
with
up.
this 7-1.
No, but just in saying that and what you're saying, like the situations that pop up. I know there's a lot of situations that pop up, and obviously an hourly position situation isn't going to address those situations where maybe a district staff member would. And I know our translation, for getting our documents translated, the turnaround time has been really difficult, and that is fair, given that we're asking current staff and parent volunteers to do translating. Everybody's busy, and it's very difficult to add that to their load. So it's just something that before the end of the year, I kind of wanted to re-highlight.
Any discussion? Seeing none, supplementary matters?
So I was reading the Crimson that was included in our board packet, which is awesome, beautiful, it's extraordinarily well done. And I was reading this opinion piece about funding for the theater program. And So I was curious as to what our funding is. And I guess the starting point would be sort of like, just love to know the numbers of how many students participate in our theater program. What's that number?
The number who are in the
Who
classes
participate?
themselves or
Who participate in,
co-curriculars or?
yeah, who participate in the various theatrical performances.
I think Jen has some of those numbers?
Yep, I can give you some of these numbers. So we have 21 students who participated in the fall play, 48 students participated in the spring musical. Question that was asked that I still will need to research is how many students overlap among those two groups. So I'll look into that next. We also have theater classes in our school, 3 theater classes, Theater 1, Theater 2, and acting troupe. Theater 1 is a semester class. It has 15 students in it. Theater 2 and acting troupe are full-year class that are co-seated with a total of 8 students enrolled. In terms of budgets, there is not a line item for theater. However, the theater program, the musical and the play, use the funds from the admissions to pay for the licenses and scripts. Most props are donated or reused from the previous performance. We do also, the district pays for the stipends, the salaries for the director, who is an outside director, the assistant director, the vocal coach, set designer, instrumentalist, the choreographer, and that totals $21,000 for the spring musical. For the fall play, the director, assistant director, and set director, it costs the district about $7,000 for the stipends.
Okay. So I'm just curious, do you remember how much that cost to build the pack? Anybody remember that, Lou? Is that a high or is that a five?
You're testing me now, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not, and I'm not looking to test. I guess, you know.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Obviously,
five,
you know,
seven.
we're always
I
budget
guess
conscious.
5 million.
I think 5 million sticks in my mind. but-
Yeah, I mean, so we're always budget conscious, and, but we built this $5 million facility. And, you know, we're spending between $500 and $1,800 per head in sports, and $21K on 48 kids, you know, probably at the low end, you know, clearly below the low end.
Yeah, he's 28,000 for.
Well, that's fall, right, so the fall has 21.
There might be some overlap on the kids.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
But you're looking at
you
the
know,
high number of
you know,
Okay.
all things being equal, right, it's sort of, it's 7 on 21 and 21 on 48. And it just seems to me like, you know, we have this phenomenal facility. And we actually have quite a number of very talented people in the program, including our own alumni, Jack Broderick, who was, you know, our board rep last year. And it just seems like, I'd like to understand a little bit more about, you know, really where we are with respect to funding, where they are with respect to their needs, and how we fill that gap. Because when you look at 500 to 1,800 for athletics and the numbers that we're talking about for arts, particularly given a capital investment of $5 million in a facility, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, that should be a showcase for us. I mean, that Performing Arts Center and our theater program should be a showcase for us, but it appears that we are under allocating resources to that program. It's great that it's put in an opinion piece. It gets people's attention. I think that's great, but I would love to see a little bit more work done in terms of understanding what it is that we're doing today and what more we can do, because it just seems like they're a second-class citizen, and I don't think that's appropriate.
Well,
So
suggest
also-
you put that on Bob's list for January to discuss and finance.
I think you also need to delineate the difference between what happens with the sports and what happens here, because you're talking about busing, you're talking about travel, like there's a whole bunch of other stuff involved with the sport, so. it's kind of
What are the
like that
specific
whole thing.
concerns, though, that people believe that we could do better, things that we're not doing well?
They're begging, borrowing, and stealing on costumes. There's a role in the spring performance that requires a bald head, and they have to scrape together $600 to get, you know what I'm saying? It's like they have to scrape together $600 to get.
I just got what you said.
But what it is that, theater, the costumes in the set are like the helmets and the shoulder pads. And yet, we're not, it doesn't appear that we're making an equitable investment in a theater program, that we've invested $5 million in a facility. My first meeting, I showed up and we had a $100,000 purchase for a piano. $100,000 purchase for a piano, I don't know,
I believe that, was that Chef?
Yeah. That remains to be seen, but.
Yeah, because that facility.
I understand, all I'm saying is, and I'm not looking to spend a lot of money, all I'm saying is, it seems to me that we're hearing, like, hey, probably could look at this.
Well, and I think we talked about looking at sports. I think it's appropriate that while we're in a budget, going into a budget season, that the finance committee would pick apart funding across a wide range of things, and why that can't be another one. Let the record show that I put up a drama shed behind the middle school. And so if they need costumes, I can promise you that is filled to the rafters. There is probably a full tent somewhere in there.
I have to say though, when you spend $5 million on a facility and you don't invest in the underlying performances that are conducted in the facility, it is really short-sighted. And I get that it was previous boards, but it's a phenomenal facility. It's in fact a marquee facility. And the performances that are held in that facility should be marquee performances.
I just want to say one thing. Just one thing. When that facility was built, I think it was built with the hopes that we would have outside groups come in and rent from us, so that we would be having some kind of income from it. I'm not so sure how that has transpired, but I think that was part of why that facility was built.
That was my comment, maybe, Was it done on a referendum? Did we pass a referendum for that, or how was that, how were all those monies?
I'm not sure what the question was.
That theater that we have, was it a referendum?
That was a referendum. It was part of the $54 million referendum in addition.
Income from other
Right.
sources, though.
So,
As far as the income, I think that was looked at, but it was always conflicts with all the things that were going on with concerts and plays in spring and fall.
because I remember that.
So I think there were some questions about renting it out or using it for outside performances that interfered with things that were going on in the school itself, so I don't know if that ever really. I'm sorry?
That is a beautiful
It is.
facility, so you have to really be careful with that as an asset in terms of.
And you need
Letting outside
to have people from here that know how to use the equipment to be part of whatever outside performance is going
Also,
on.
when I was in Bridgewater, we had all of Somerset County, all the child study teams and everyone in special education meet here in the theater, and we had a whole, presentation with flyers and whatnot. I mean, this is the space that we use, so I mean, we can at least look into hosting other school districts for professional development.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one about the PAC. I did remember seeing it on Dance Moms years ago, that they actually so they rented it out, so I remember that.
You watched Dance?
I did watch Dance Moms. Yes, this was on Dance Moms, was on Dance Moms, so I remember that, okay, I did. And I did watch Dance Moms.
Dance Mom.
Yes, okay, yes. And the second one is that with the sports, you know, we keep them compared to sports, but all sports aren't the same. And I have to say that because my son did fencing, and when we started, the parents had paid $5,000 for strips. They had to raise the money to buy that. And when I started, my son, I had to pay $120 for his uniform. So if we're gonna go back, we have to go back and just look at every single sport out there and see, and see what we do. Because the parents do, I mean, all the parents here raise a lot of money for the kids to participate. Yeah. We spend a lot of money, we just gotta, but you know, then again, is that something we're gonna be able to pick up? I don't know, you know, because I don't know if we decide that, you know, the parents are spending all this money for sports, or we're gonna start putting it in our budget. So, I don't know.
But I also want to point out that it's not, the pack is not just for the plays, right? It's for all the musicals, all the musicals at the other, the musical performances from the other schools.
Graduation.
Award ceremonies,
Middle school
teacher,
concerts.
Middle school graduation.
all kinds of things.
Yeah, of course, I'm not suggesting.
No, I know, so it's very used for a lot of things, not just that.
High school, they have a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Musical
So I
high
think
school.
all of this needs to be looked at. It's just a big job. We're going to, that's a big undertaking. And I think we definitely have the motivation to do that.
So just to cap this off too, when that referendum was passed and we built that PAC center, you know, PAC centers were all the rage. Everybody was building them with the express idea that you would have plays, organizations come in to put on plays, concerts, whatever. But there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of PAC centers. And I think maybe that's part of the problem, why we are probably not renting as much or whatever. But I do understand your point. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I make a comment? Okay, so I wanted to review the canning issue that I brought up last time. I apologize, I did not have all the information.
None of us do.
Right.
That's why we put it back on.
Okay, so I do feel it is necessary for the, whoever needs to go canning to raise money. I do understand that they do pack the groceries, they do walk them out. I was bombarded with but I really do sincerely apologize for misunderstanding and then just.
Well, it's our job to question things. I think the next time before we actually log it, we'll find out more.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it.
So we're just trying to do our job, right?
I know, but, you know, I'll call it a
I got it.
And can I just mention one thing too? Yeah, the other day I was at an event and the Madrigals performed at that event. And I will tell you, they were beyond fantastic. You know when you listen to a concert or whatever and you actually get chills? You know that what they're doing is just so perfect. And that's what happened. And you know, I had an opportunity to speak to some of the kids, a couple who I had in school years ago. But you know, all of the kids were so thrilled about performing there and performing in general, and they couldn't stop talking about the White House today. So I really, really just wanted to say how fantastic they were and how appreciative the audience was of them.
Jenny, I just wanted to publicly thank all the families that came to the pancake breakfast and holiday shop at Bedwell, and thank the parents who volunteered. But I actually wanted to give an even bigger shout out to the teachers. We had so many teachers that volunteered at the holiday shop to help wrap gifts and help the children shop, that when I tell you, it was so heartwarming, it doesn't even really convey my sentiments. So thank you to all of you, all the teachers that volunteered. We have quite a few here in the audience. I think it really made the kids' day to have you there. And when I say that the HSA couldn't have pulled off that event without you, I sincerely mean it. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other comments? Someone like to make a move to the...
Motion?
Second.
I think we have to vote on that.
Oh, yes,
Well,
right.
Oh, to accept the
No,
resignation.
we have to vote on Sarah's resignation, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, we do, oh.
Yes, so it's at the
Under
end of
supplemental
the...
matters. So we need a motion.
Right, number 12.
Last motion.
The last,
He's making the last motion.
okay.
A second?
Okay, so we would like to motion to adjourn.
I'm good.
You want me to vote?
We have to vote.
Yeah.
Mr. Baker? Mr. DeGiacchino? Mrs. Hoppy? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanford? Yes. Mrs. Tober? Yes. Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Okay, now we can get the motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Okay.